Hi, everybody. It's me, Dr. Pinky with Kuwento Co. And I'm here today with the lovely Krystle Tugadi, who wrote our chapter, Our Heavy Doors. Welcome, Krystle.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You have the most animated personality and voice, I think, out of all my authors. You are just amazing.
Thank you.
So let's go right into it. What is your cuento about?
Yeah, so my cuento is about a little my cuento is about a little Filipina girl who falls in love with reading because of the time that she spent with her Lola, and her Lola like helped her find the joy in the art of putting together letters and words and finding reading, and how amazing it is, and how it creates stories that she gets to read, and eventually stories that not only affect her from the pages that she's reading, but the stories that start to develop around her. And at the same time of the fun of reading and like the coziness of it all, her Lola is also simultaneously trying to prepare her for this life in America. And we find that even with all the tools to navigate this life in America, there's always going to be these very specific challenges that she's going to face growing up as a little Filipina girl, a little brown girl in SoCal. It's just about acknowledging these sometimes harsh realities of what it means to be living in this space that is the United States as a Filipino girl, but still finding the joy and love and family and owning your voice.
Absolutely. I think there's going to be a lot of people who read your story and they will relate, to it. So there's got to be a reason behind your writing. Why did you write this particular cuento? What are those reasons or maybe inspirations that our watchers, our readers don't even know about?
Sure. Yeah. So I wrote this cuento because as I, got older, I had to become honest about this reality. I think it's harder to be honest about it rather than stay in like this delusion of like, it's going to be better. Just pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Like you physically also cannot do that. So it's so funny because I was in this class, this directing lab class, and we were devising this piece about the American dream and pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. And we literally physically tried to do that. And you actually cannot. Like if you're on the floor and you're pulling yourself up from the bootstraps, like you literally cannot. So it's a lie. Yeah, it's just, and for immigrants, as crazy as it is with this myth of the American dream, for little kids who are learning about this and being fed this idea that if we work hard, we have all our ducks in a row, we'll be able to celebrate the promise of freedom and acceptance and wealth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all these expectations, right? But like early on, I started to get a sense that maybe it isn't all the way true, but it's still like being conditioned to like, nope, we must be grateful for what we have here. And I just eventually couldn't do that anymore, and realize that I really have to kind of forge my own path and use my own power to make my own dreams and my own reality one that I love and find joy in, and my own space where I can feel like I am part of the tapestry of this country and am worthy of the tapestry of this country. And I don't need to lean on these expectations and ideas of what have been fed to me. So I just wanted to make the story to share my own personal experience and to let folks know that your experience is you're not making things up in your head, because I think that's what we feel like. We feel bad for feeling that way, but I think it's okay, and we need to give ourselves allowance to be honest about our experiences here so that we can really find our own way to own our life. So, yeah.
That's a really good point. You mentioned your personal story. So in your entire story, it was written in like a third person, omnipotent, narration. And I love that, and then you added your photos of what looks like to be your Lola and you growing up. So how much of this is true to life? How much of this is true story?
A lot of it. A lot of it. I mean, the moment that I figured out how to read, I really tried to capture that moment because I remember that moment so vividly still to this day. Like it was after lunch, like truly after lunch, and I just wanted to read. I picked up a book, and usually like I had it upside down. I just like I didn't really think about like what the correct position of the book was if I was reading it on my own. But then I remember laying down on my tummy with the book in front of me on my mom's bed and thinking, oh, it's upside down. So something was starting to click. I turned it over and I was like, oh, these are the letters, or these are the words. And then I really put my finger on the letter and was like, oh, this is the word. I don't know if find was the word, but it was a word. And I figured it out. And I was so excited to tell my Lola. So freaking excited. I remember running to the kitchen, like, I can read. I can do it. And, just like finding those little discoveries. And as a kid, like figuring out how to tell time, that was also a really fun thing that I remember. And just being so excited that like I can exist in this world, and because I have these skills.
And the fact that you remembered that as a core memory of you growing up with your Lola. I mean, reading is obviously uber critical, right? To be successful, in your education and your career in America, as the dominant language. And I love that this story was that impetus of, your first words here in America, right? Because mastering the language is a huge barrier to many immigrants of all cultures, first of all. And the fact that your grandma, who is an elementary school teacher, taught you those words, right? That empowerment you said. And I just was it reminded me of my own story. And as you were reading it, I was like, I have my first book that I read. And I have it's a Sesame book. Isn't that crazy? I can do it myself. That is like my motto, I think. Like it's all like look at this, it's all crayoned up, right?
Love
but it's all mess. But I remember exactly your story. I remembered myself saying the same thing when I finally learned how to read this, but instead of my Lola, it was my Nina. And I was like, auntie, I can read. It was the same exact experience as yours. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I kept the book through all these years. And that is probably one of the youngest memories I have, like my literary memories, as well as like just even as a child. Like I must have been like 5 years old. I don't know if I remember anything else. So
oh my God, that is amazing. I'm getting like emotional seeing like your book.
I know. And I wonder, I was like, is that the Charlie Brown book? Which love Charlie Brown, by the way. Was that really the book? Or
yes, that was the book.
You've got to find the book. Oh
I know.
God.
I hope my mom still has it somewhere in her house.
I bet you it's there. Videotape yourself looking for it and then like send it to us. Like send it to so yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, when your Lola, I mean, first of all, I think there's always a very special heart for our grandparents, and especially your Lola, which because I'm very close to my Lola, God bless, who has passed away. So I just love how your story really, talks about this heavy door and how your Lola was really preparing you. So what is the heavy door for you? Like, obviously, like, you wrote about it in your story, but what are some of those things to you personally that represent the heavy door?
Ooh, so many things. I feel like the way that society is and our expectations, with the added layer of being immigrants in this country, trying to achieve that American dream. As a woman, like, there are certain expectations. You're gonna, get older, you're gonna become an adult, you're gonna get married and then have kids. You're probably gonna be a nurse if you're Filipino, like you're all of these like XYZ, right? And my heavy doors became this path that I was going on that made me kind of run away from myself, like my authentic self. And maybe the doors just felt a little bit easier to open going down that path. and going down the other path, coming back to myself, the doors have always been heavier. Always, always, always. Being a Filipino woman, going to predominantly white schools, it's like, oh, I need to go through the easier door so that I'm more palatable, or I'm in a space where I need to put a mask on so I can be more accepted, And every time I'd go through the easier doors, it never felt that great. It never felt genuine to me. So anytime I'd turn around and try to open those heavier doors, it's always a little bit more challenging, that sometimes I had to like open by myself. I would find myself on the other side, finding more courage, finding more of who I am at my core, going against what I, maybe should be doing, all the shoulds. I think all the shoulds really are the easier doors, right? Going to the heavier doors is like, this is me, but it's just, it's like, which way are you going to go? So the heavy doors have been becoming an artist, being my opinionated self, because I'm very opinionated, and it's like, hey, don't talk back, or like, don't say what you're actually thinking because it's going to hurt, someone's feelings or someone's ego or whatever. And it's like, most of the time it's not like a reflection on you. It's just like, I just want to be me, I just want to be me. I just want to be weirdo little Krystle, who loves art, who loves to, play and experiment and love on like my playful child self, when we're always like, we got to be like serious and like adults all the time. Like, even at a young age, it's like, you got to be serious. You got to be like proper. And I'm just not that. So my heavy doors has always been like these barriers that have kept me from being who I am. And as I've gotten older, especially in like the last decade, I've said, F it, I'm going to go through the harder doors. And every single time I've chosen the heavier door, I've always just found so much more joy and so much more peace for myself. And something that my Lola has always done for me, despite, and it's complicated, right? Because she wants me to be successful in this world, but at the same time, she always encouraged me to lean into my strengths, lean into, my love for art, my love for reading, and I'm getting emotional. But I forgot what I was saying.
I love that you sing when you're nervous. By the way, folks, she is a beautiful singer and an actress. I mean, she does everything, y'all. Y'all need to look her up. You need to Google this woman. Yes. No, I mean, you kind of talked a little bit more, but maybe dive into now that you've written this piece, right? What are some lessons that you've learned from your cuento, and even from the process of writing this all out?
Ooh, writing is hard. Writing is hard. And, I've written music. I'm like working on some like plays and stuff. And every single time I get my hands on my laptop or my hands on a pen and paper, I'm always judging myself. And that's an easy door. It's easier, I think, to judge yourself rather than to just accept where you are right in this moment, in your process, whatever that may be, and whatever process that you're in, whether it be like, your own self-discovery, writing, your career, whatever. But I'm learning, and I'm still learning. Because it's so hard, because how we're conditioned. I'm like judging myself. So I have really evolved, and I'm still evolving into this place where I'm like, okay, this is what I have right now. And that's good enough. It's enough. So like, knowing that I am enough, knowing the process and where I'm in at every stage is enough, has been probably one of the biggest lessons I've had in writing. I never thought I would be part of an anthology, but like on the other side of fear, after like that after that heavy tour, I'm sorry. Like I get to be part of this incredible book of fellow writers and fellow folks who are like willing to share their story and their heart and their vulnerability. And I think that's what we need more of in this world, more like vulnerability and sharing and community. So if I hadn't, just powered through, opened up that heavy door and just like wrote, I wouldn't be here with you today. And I'm just so happy that I am. And I've also learned that my Lola is always with me. Just like always with me, even like my storytelling, she's there. And I'm getting emotional. And like I really owe so much to her for allowing me and giving me space to play and to be myself whenever whenever she felt like we can just really go in and, of course there's those moments where like, Krystle, hold back a little bit because, this is where we are, just a little bit, and I get that. But I've taken that lesson and I really ran with it. And even in the moments where she wasn't happy that I ran with it, I'm glad that I did. And I know that she's in heaven and saying, I'm glad you did that, boo.
He sure is up there partying it up with my Lola too. Because
oh my God, yes.
Honestly, when I think of you saying those heavy doors, and you're right, heavy doors, the hardest part is being your authentic self, your truth, like that. The easiest door is not to follow that. And I think your grandma helped you open that. I mean, she's just helped you unlock your authentic self and really, from a young age, and she definitely left that door open, easy for you to keep moving forward, into. And I think you're doing that now with what you do for your work, helping all the students, the families, the communities that you help with your artistry. It made so much sense when you said that, when we first talked, even before off camera, about what you do. And it's because your Lola taught you how to read. So now you're teaching other people to read, to write, to do art, to sing, to do music. You're right. And that's where your Lola is, in that spirit, when you're always teaching.
Yeah.
So yeah. So why do you think others should write and share their cuento, especially people who are just like you, right? What can you say to those people?
There is always going to be things that tell you that you're not enough. Like that, like it is very true. I was put in an ESL class, despite the fact that I was the only kid in class who knew how to read. But I had an accent. I had a Filipino accent because I grew up in a Filipino household, which doesn't make me any freaking less American, But people will always tell you, you're not enough. You're not doing enough. Your stories, your words, your existence is like not worthy. You got to do more. You got to do more. You got to put on more, but you don't need to put on anything. You don't. You really don't. We don't, guys. We don't. And so I think that if we can see more folks just like feel and lean into that courage of just being themselves and finding that courage to share their stories, you just never know who will also feel empowered by your story, the way that you've healed, the way that you've persevered, the way that you've challenged. I think the way that you've challenged, I think, is a really big one, because I think, especially as Filipinos, put your head down, like don't stir up any trouble. But like they say, good trouble. It's like good trouble to like be disruptive in the best way possible so that we can all live freely. And I think that it is so important that we hear these stories so that we know that we're not alone in being disruptive or trying to challenge things. Because I think deep down, we're like, we want to say it. We want to say it. But we might be afraid to. We don't want to get in trouble, But I think there's a lot of folks out there who are waiting and wanting that support and that example that you could say what you got to say. You could say what you got to say. And I think that honoring our reality, like the reality of the world and ourselves, will only bring us forward and not backward, because we don't want to go backward. I think essentially, no matter what your background might be, I think all of us are hoping to move forward in some way. I don't know how big those leaps, are for, each person, but I think ultimately we're all trying to get to like this place of safety and love and care. And I think if we offer up space and take up space too, people will know that It's possible. It's possible to live in a world where you can be yourself.
Yeah, and get to a place where you feel it's enough.
Yes. Yes, because you are. Everyone is enough. And people lie to you and tell you that you're not. But that's a lie. You are enough. We are all enough. And yeah, you're worthy. Your words and your experiences are all worthy of sharing and knowing about. And I think that's what stops us sometimes. Is like, oh, my story isn't worth anything, like I'm just like a Joe Schmo in this world. But no, you're not a Joe Schmo. You're whoever you are, and that is amazing.
Right. And it's not like you have to have a PhD in something to write. That's not necessary. Like, you can write now, right? You have a story, you have a life. That's what I have to say to, writers and to authors. Like, you have a life. So this life you've led, you're the only one who knows it. So write about it.
Yes. And like, all our stories are so unique. And it's exciting to hear other people's stories. Like, I have the absolute honor of getting to create art with my students and like seeing how everyone comes with, we might be doing the same project, right? But it's always going to be different, coming from, these singular hands, these singular eyes, these singular feels. And that's what makes things beautiful. Like, it's not, if we had a field of flowers and they all look the same, like, it'd be like, oh, that's cool, but like, if we, when you see like all those flowers, they're different colors and it's like this garden of gorgeousness, it's like, oh, wow, like, look at all these different kinds of flowers that make up this one field of beauty. So yeah, and it is scary to write. It's scary to write on so many levels, but you're only going to know that you can do it once you open up that heavy door and just do it and stop judging yourself, because again, you're enough. And
Yeah.
you'll always progress. You'll maybe write one not as, great story, or you feel is a great story, but the next one might be it. And even that not so great story might touch someone. So just write it.
Absolutely. And you have obviously left an impact on me, of course, this book, our future readers. I mean, tapping into my own memory cores. I mean, look, it's already happening, and so you are absolutely right. Folks, Krystle, her writing are heavy doors, y'all. If you have not read it yet, pick up the book, the Kuwento Book, an anthology of Filipino stories and poems. It will be coming out May 23rd. So please, please, please pick it up, support her. And thank you once again, Krystle. Is there any last words you want to share or elevate any of the work that you're doing to our readers and our watchers?
Just a reminder that you're enough. That's it. You're enough. And we need you as you. That's all. And thank you, Pinky, so much for having me be part of this incredible project. It is so amazing to have folks from our community show up and show out and share their stories and be vocal about their experiences and share their art. So it's just, I'm really so honored and so excited for this anthology, and so excited for everyone to dive into these stories, and hopefully we get to hear everyone else's too.
We sure will, folks. Please tune in. There's going to be more interviews, so click on those as well. All right. Well, thank you so much. Everybody have a good night.
Bye.